There was a month, acquisition broke, no sellers, no closers, no leads, no sales calls. Most businesses would crumble. But because you think chimps actually save for the future, how many chimps you know that have a 401k? They want the banana now. Forget the idea that you can automate everything. You can just have a course in a self-managed community. We haven't seen that working. And then you can ask me, how much can I scale? As much as you want. Because
Welcome to the Ethical Scaling Podcast, your guide to navigating online business with integrity. Join Jay and Ben on this epic journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or new to the game, get ready for insights, strategies, and a dash of humor. So grab your favorite beverage, cozy up in your favorite spot, and get ready to deep dive into the art and science of ethical scaling. From client success to boosting lifetime value. Plus, learn how to turn clients into your best advocates. Ready to scale ethically? Let's dive in.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Ethical Scaling Podcast. Today we're going to talk about a topic that we get into a lot with our clients, and it's simply called growing versus scaling. Now, especially in our industry, the high ticket space, a lot of owners, kind of get this wrong in a sense. And they'll say, Ben and Jay, I really want to scale up my business. And, I just want to get to $1 million a month. And it's like, okay, cool. But what do you think scaling is? And when they tell us their definition of scaling, it's really actually growing, right? So Jay, do you want to just kind of break down, this definition of growing versus scaling for us?
Yeah, I think there is a big misunderstanding. And when people hear the word scaling, they just think about more, which is part of scaling. But the difference between scaling and growing, let's go back to something simpler. Let's think about a system. When you think about growing, you're just adding more inputs to get more outputs, which is fine. That's growing. But scaling should be, can I get the same outputs with less inputs? Or if I actually increase inputs, can I get much more outputs than what I was getting before? So imagine that scaling is adding a multiplier. It's like I can grow faster than I was growing before. That's when you enter that scaling phase. But most of these companies, they grow from a startup phase and now they're actually growing. And there is nothing wrong with growing. I think it's just a misunderstanding that, yes, if you've been through the startup stage and now you're growing, what should you get in place for you to actually scale?
Right. Well, and then we see this point in most of our clients' businesses where, they've grown, and they're like, guys, why is my profit margin dropping?
And that's a symptom of growing and not scaling.
Yeah. And it's like, we added more setters, we added more closers,
increased ad spend.
Yeah. Increased ad spend. Our cost of acquisition is going up. But what they're not looking at is one of the things we really focus on, which is LTV, right? And so, a big part of what we do is, okay, let's look at your fulfillment funnel, which is what we call it, and see how can we focus on that, double down on that so that you can actually scale and you can get either more outputs with the same inputs or less, right? And so, this is one of the big issues we see with clients.
And I think there are so many symptoms. And I want you guys, when you're listening to the podcast or you're watching the video, to make sure you can go and audit what you're doing so that you understand, cool, if I'm growing and not scaling, what should I be doing in order for me to scale? Because that should be my goal if you really want to scale, because nothing wrong if you don't want to scale. But just look at your profit margins. Are your profit margins kind of being kept stable or increasing? That's amazing. That's a great sign. Maybe you're scaling. Second option, are my collections increasing? So when I say collections, you have contracted revenue and you have collected revenue. Is it increasing over time? That rate of how much was contracted and how much was collected. Is my churn rate, refund rate, cancellation rate, whatever you want to call it, going down over time? That's a good sign. That makes me think that I'm actually scaling. But if none of that, or at least the majority of that, is not happening, maybe you're not scaling and you're growing. And instead of you trying to add more, just let's figure out a way for you to actually scale. And basically, what does scale mean? It's efficiency. That's basically it. In a very simple term, if you have an efficient system, you should be able to generate more results, more outputs out of the existing inputs. Because the biggest cost that I see when you think you're scaling and you're growing, it's burnout. Being honest, more than money, more than profitability, how many business owners we have seen that they are close to a burnout or they actually burn everything down to the ground?
Yeah, many of them. And I think too, you know, guys, like we want you to be able to take what we're talking about here and take some action. And look, we're going to do a whole podcast on what we call revenue generating activities and all of that. But if you look at maybe just two things, right? Like Jay said, look at your cash collected. And what are we doing? You know, if our cash collected is not 90% or higher, then what can we do about that? So first you have to identify, like, do we actually have a system around cash collection issues?
Probably not. Then
Right.
I think let's spend a little bit more time there, because I think people that are listening to our podcast or will listen to our podcast in the future, if they're in this space, and when I say this space, is the online service-based businesses like coaches, consultants, course creators, agencies. There are two systems or departments in a business that we see that are not working well. One is fulfillment. This is why we love what we do so much and why it's so needed. And the second one is the financial system that most of these companies have or don't have. So most companies, when I ask them, hey, what's your collections rate? I don't know. Okay, that's something you need to work on. It's hard for me to give people a number, but after a certain revenue and a certain stability on your acquisition, you need maybe a controller or, I don't know, someone that keeps an eye on your collections, what's collection rates, so that you can have a reporting at the end of the month. Because I think the direction you're going, and why I pause you for a second, is then some people might say, oh, Ben, I would love to do that, but I don't know where I am. I don't know what's my collection rate. So that might be a sign that you need to work first in your fulfillment, and then secondly, start thinking about a way of having a financial system that can be easily trackable.
Yeah. So collections is a huge one that we see with clients. The other big one is, you know, we really want your fulfillment team to be self-liquidating at some point. And that means that they're generating enough revenue to pay for themselves and more, right? And we do that through testimonials, referrals, and renewals, upsells, right? Those are the big ones. Now, we're not going to get into renewals, you know, testimonials we can get into, but referrals are probably the other really low hanging fruit when we talk about, you know, scalability and like starting to really create more revenue in your fulfillment funnel, right? So, you know, what are a couple of things that you see that are like super easy when it comes to referrals?
So when I think about scaling, and I don't want to go through all the concepts today, but I talk a lot about diffusion of innovation, crossing the chasm. Basically, when you start going to the Gen Pop or to a broader market compared to what you were doing at the beginning, you need to understand that people will be looking for certainty. So one of the ways you can create that sense of certainty is by having a ton of testimonials. Think about us. The more we grow, I thought people were not going to ask us for testimonials. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
We're attracting more people, newer people, not the ones that have been around us for years. And even though they trust us because they come to us through recommendations, referrals, they ask for testimonials. Same thing for you. If you can stack a ton of testimonials, people might see, how can I attach a $ to a testimonial? You can. How many prospects did you get on a call and you could have closed them if you had the right testimonial to share with them? A lot. Yep. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of testimonials. But you might say, hey, Jay, but that's not going to fix the main problem. Cool. Referrals is probably going to be the biggest one. So we have two options to think about the role that can help you accomplish the things we're talking about. So one of them is by saving revenue, which is reducing the number of clients that cancel or ask for a refund, and you need a team for that. Forget the idea that you can automate everything. You can just have a course in a self-managed community. We haven't seen that working. And that goes back to market sophistication. The market is smart. The market knows what they want, and they know how to associate value to what they're getting. That's basically managing expectations and meeting your client expectations. But then referrals is like massive. And people don't understand that referrals don't require crazy tactics. The number of referral opportunities you have in your pipeline it's a direct reflection of how good your fulfillment is. And I just had a really nice conversation with a client of ours yesterday. And we were talking about referrals and the self-liquidating team member, because he knows all of our concepts. We have been working together now for more than a year. And he was like, I understand the concept. Part of my team embodies that. Part of my team doesn't. And the numbers were very simple. Each of their client success managers, coaches, account managers, whatever you call it in your company, they oversee 100 clients. In order for them to be self-liquidating, do you know how many referrals they need? 1 referral every other month based on their salary. Yeah. And because their team was never nurtured in a way that they understand the importance of getting referrals for the company and not being able to just go to a cold market and to a broader market and just running more ads and more setters and more closers, they don't focus on that. That's the challenge there, because look at how simple the number is. We're talking about 6 referrals a year, but each person that is working with clients will pay for their salary. And then you can ask me, how much can I scale? As much as you want. Because fulfillment is not a cost anymore. Your client success is not a cost anymore. And I think that's the biggest misconception here. Just get the right team in place. The team needs to be trained. The team needs to be supported, and they need to understand those RGAs, saving revenue and generating revenue.
Yeah. So, again, guys, we're talking about growing versus scaling. And, to loop back to that, because I think we've given some actions and some of those things, but like you have to grow, right? Mm-hmm. Like for us, we're growing right now. Mm-hmm. We're not at the point of scaling. We're still growing. And so it's like, that's fine. That's okay. You have to grow, but you really do have to watch especially your profit margin, right? And that's something we actively do. And, we're always tracking our profit and being mindful of that. Is it time for us to hire? Do we need to become more efficient? Is there anything else on this topic of growing versus scaling you think?
I think when you understand the concept and you actually implement it, you might not value it until you need it. But for me, it's like a safety cushion. And I can think about a client of ours, and again, we won't name names. We're just going to use them as really great examples because we are lucky enough to work with really great people. And they had a problem with acquisition. There was a month, acquisition broke, no setters, no closers, no leads, no sales calls. Most businesses would crumble. Mm-hmm. But because they had the system dialed in, they had all these things in place, they had monthly recurring revenue, their collections rate is super high, their churn is super low.
The recurring was from the back end.
From the back end. Yeah. So because they were able, and again, back end, it's another thing, there is just a reflection or a byproduct of a great journey. And I understand that most people, when they're growing the business, they come from a place of scarcity because they have so much going on. It's hard for them to think long term. But if you want to play business in easy mode, you need to think long term, because if you don't think long term about taking care of clients, reducing churn, increasing referrals, increasing conversions to having backend clients, and again, we'll have plenty of time to talk about what backend clients are, but basically think about each client you start a relationship with. Can I extend this relationship for as long as possible by creating a fair exchange of value? It's not just getting money from your clients, it's selling something, understanding the expectation, meeting the expectation, find the next expectation, create problem awareness, deliver the next solution, and keep working with them. As simple as it sounds. This is marketing 101. If you guys go and read old marketing books, that's what they all talk about. We just do it differently, because when I think about a client and RGAs, revenue generating activities, they're going to be intimacy-based sales, intimacy-based revenue generating activities, meaning that they're going to be much easier. Why they're easier? Because there is an ongoing relationship.
Well, that's the thing. They're only easy if you do a great job of creating relationships with your clients, right?
Because when clients reach out to us, even our clients, sometimes they're unaware of a couple of things. This is why it's so fun to work with them. It's like, hey, Jay, hey, Ben, hey, team, how can we create like this new referral system? It's like, guys, we have been working on your journey. Your results rate is not there yet. And when I say results rate, is the number of people that actually cross the finish line. With success, of course. Yeah. Well, but even if I just think about crossing the finish line, that's already big. How many people are able to cross the finish line, and out of those, how many are successful? If those numbers are there, we can then start thinking about more testimonials, because you have plenty. More referrals, because you have plenty of opportunities. More back-end sales or renewals or continuation offers, because you have plenty of opportunities. It's like when you're not closing enough people or bringing enough clients, you need to pump the volume. That's part of the game. But here, you have much more control over the quality of that volume, which you don't have when you're running front-end ads. When your marketing is just advertising to everyone in the world, do you have any control over the quality of those leads, of those sales calls? But when you're working with clients, you know the quality. They're already paid. There is a level of commitment. There is a level of emotional investment more than just a monetary investment. I think that's the key takeaway. If you want to scale, this is just our very biased opinion from what we've seen over the past 3 years and a half and working with more than 100 different businesses, is that people tend to think about scaling and they're growing. And they think about scaling and they're applying it only to marketing and sales. Mm-hmm. So this concept of understanding how you can actually scale should be applicable to every single department. But the one that is going to generate the best results and the fastest ones probably, it's most probably going to be fulfillment, your client success department. Because by just saving revenue, that's an immediate return.
Yeah. And I think, the theme, and you mentioned this, it's like, as an owner, you have to be willing to slow down, right? If you're going to start tracking churn, if you're going to teach your team how and when to ask for referrals and set a KPI for them on how many people they're asking, if you're going to, do better with expectation management and getting better client results, like this takes a slowing down and a focus on your fulfillment department that, a lot of owners struggle with, because it's like, I want to get to more. But we've seen it time and time again, even with us, right? Like if you go slow and you do these things, you will actually grow and or scale faster than you ever thought was possible.
There is a level of impatience for most business owners, including us. Mm-hmm. So we want things to go fast. The problem is, I think everyone got so addicted to performance marketing, where you can launch a new offer, run some ads, validate your offer, and then they think that can be the system and the process for everything. When dealing with clients is not the same. It might need to be a little bit slower, but slower doesn't mean slow forever. Yeah. It's going to be slower in the short term with compound effects over the long term. And that's the problem that I see, because it's hard. Because if I just go back to psychology and human behavior, our brain has two big portions of it. We have the old part of our brain, which is our chimp, if you will. And then we have the more modern part of our brain, which is our human. Humans love the idea about a 401k, saving for the future. But do you think chimps actually save for the future? How many chimps you know that have a 401k? They want the banana now. And that's the problem here, is that as a business owner, sometimes we are overly focused on bananas and we forget about the 401k. You're not going to get a better 401k than actually taking care of your clients. That's the best investment you can do at the moment. If you're going from growing to scaling, it's actually, how can I take care of my clients consistently? How can I make them feel seen and heard? How can I implement strategies that can help me save churn or save cancellations or save refunds, even if that means I need to leave a refund, to learn why am I refunding? Because I think that's another thing. Oh, I don't want to give refunds. I'm cool with that. But what if giving a refund to a client means, hey, we will jump on a call. We'll take care of everything for you to get a refund. I just want to collect feedback. And then you don't make the same mistake twice. That refund can save you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the next 1 or 2 years. And again, that's what? Long-term thinking. And this is what I want to challenge our listeners on. It's hard to think long-term. We don't judge people not thinking long-term, but I know you have long-term goals. So in order for you to accomplish those long-term goals, you need to scale. And in order for you to scale, you need a long-term thinking. And looping back to the story of our client that broke the front end, what saved him from closing his business was he had so much monthly recurring revenue that took him probably 6 to 12 months to build, that he had enough money coming in without new sales to cover everyone's pay. Company was able to run. There was enough money to keep running ads, rebuild the funnel, rebuild the whole system, and now they're healthy again. That's the importance of having a safety cushion. And again, I understand at the beginning the safety cushion might not be there, but that should be your next step. So if you guys are making enough money, you have a team, and you kind of have acquisition dialed in, client success should be your focus.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, that's all we have for today on growing and scaling. We'll see you next time.